Hey everybody, welcome to another Warships replay. Up until this point, I really haven't had a chance to talk about aiming in any particular detail. Excuse the weird glitch that's going on here, it'll clear up in a minute. Mostly because the matches happen at too fast of a pace to really talk about it. I'm switching targets all the time and making maneuvers and all sorts of things. Now this is a really good match to talk about the specifics of aiming and hitting enemy battleships at long range. This could be applied to any ship, but this is basically just a straight up running engagement between my Congo and an enemy Fuso at about 20 kilometers. And pretty much the rest of our teams ignore us, allowing us to duke it out against each other without any interference. And so you'll be able to see exactly how it is that I aim my shots at long range and how I adjust for fire. The game starts out a little slowly though, so maybe go grab a drink or something to eat, because I won't get into an actual fight for a few minutes here. Now, the Congo is one of the fastest battleships in the game. It reaches a top speed of just over 30 knots. It doesn't turn so well, it's quite long, and its hull is not really shaped well for maneuverability. It's quite long and narrow, but its speed does make it very, very mobile for a low-tier battleship. When you consider most of your tier mates are sitting at 25 knots at most, or more commonly, now that the Americans are in, about 22 or 23 knots on average. The Congo also, of course, has very good range, being a Japanese battleship. Your pagoda mast is quite tall, not as tall as Fuso's, but quite tall, and it provides you a good view of what's going on. The way range is calculated, of course, is based on the width and height of the rangefinder for the main guns. Initially I decided to head towards the east side of the map here, but I actually changed my mind here and doubled back on my course. Of course, this means I'm going to have to turn my turrets all the way around, but that's okay because there's nothing really within my line of fire at the moment, so I'm not really missing any potential engagement time here. I'm not suffering any downtime, so to speak. And here I pick out my target. The Fuso is just inside my gun range. He's more or less paralleling the course I plan on taking, and the Fuso is quite a long ship to accommodate those two midships turrets either side of the boiler rooms. So he's a very, very good target to shoot at. Now I'm going to hit the shift key here so you can see the little binocular overlay. I make an initial half broadside before my rear guns are fully traversed, just to see where they land. It looks like it's just a touch too far ahead of him, but otherwise more or less on. And so as the stern guns align to my aim, I fire off both stern turrets. The Fuso is also really easy to aim at because it has a lot of very obvious aiming references. For instance, the four turrets, the pagoda mast, the centerline turrets, the funnel. It's a very distinctive silhouette. Now my second set of shots didn't really have much effect, so the third goes in and I found his forward magazine. Those shells plunged in through the tops of his two forward turrets, straight into the mag. They didn't blow him up, but they certainly hurt him. And so I let another 4 shells go there, using the same aiming point. However, even using a good aim point like that, you're bound to suffer some dispersion, especially at this kind of range. RNG is going to somewhat counteract your aiming ability, and this is a good thing. Back in Alpha, the battleship dispersion was much less pronounced, and if you were competent at aiming, you could basically one-shot enemy battleships from extreme range consistently. Now it's much, much harder to do, and so fights work out to be a little more drawn out and a little more interesting, a bit fairer as well. So that one looks good. Yep, there's a nearly 8,000 damage hit. You can see me adjusting my aim forwards or backwards using the little tick marks here. quick hard and fast rule I found for battleships is that placing the 5 marker on the point of their bow at about 10-second range seems to be pretty good if they're traveling at or near top speed. Of course, it changes based on the speed they're traveling and which direction they're going, but it's a quick rangefinder, and then I can adjust from there as necessary. Once again, those are pretty much on, it's just RNG scattered them a bit. On the other hand, though, the Fuso has yet to find his aim, so I don't have to worry about that. I've put my scout plane up, so I get a better elevated view of the fight. I'm sorry that there is a bit of a delay between me scoping up and then the overlay popping. I'm doing this by hand, because Wargaming haven't fixed it yet. Fingers crossed. You may notice that when I hit the shift key, while in external view, my ship actually disappears. Because the binocular gun sight mode actually occludes the model of your own ship, so that when you're aiming you don't get tangled up in your own masts, so to speak.
Torpedoes, dead ahead.
There's torps in the water, looking for where they are. They're not a threat to me, so I scope back up and look for shots on the Fuso. Now I am actually aiming at the Fuso, not the Murmansk. I think the way that the selected target thing works in replays is it doesn't actually save who you've got selected, it just goes off the ship you're pointing your gun at. So that's why it's saying I had the Murmansk locked when I was actually locked on the Fuso. So I get some more hits in there. Looks like we found the bulk of the enemy team all cluttered up around those islands, but I'm really tunnel visioned on this guy, which is actually a bad thing. But it is good for you guys because you can see what I'm doing with my aim. I tell him to aim ahead 1 tick mark because his last salvo hit just astern of me. I get another Citadel there. Nice dispersion on those shots. And here comes his fire. See me aiming with the 5 mark sitting basically on the bow of his ship and slightly above him because he's pulling away from me a bit. His last salvo once again hits just astern, pretty close, within about 50 meters. And I land another 4,500 damage there, just about. So not all of these are going to be big hits because of RNG and because of armor facings and so on, but you can at least put out consistent hits, and consistent hits usually produce consistent damage. You will get bounces and stuff like that, particularly when you come across the ship's immunity zone, but in this case I'm quite happily plunging shots onto him. It's just a case of hoping that RNG carries one of the shells onto the Citadel where I'm trying to aim it.
Reporting the target position.
Now, normally this would be a very bad situation to be in. There are a lot of enemy ships around me and I have virtually no support. My last salvo there straddled without actually hitting him. But our team holds all 4 cap points, and we have a massive points advantage, not least because the enemy team all came over to this corner of the map to do I don't know what. A couple more hits going. You saw I scattered my shots there. Half my broadside hit him and half fell astern. It's because I wasn't sure if he'd changed speed during the time I was adjusting my course. Here I prepare for a quick broadside at the New York. Quick target of opportunity there. I do get a couple of hits there, but nothing too major. And here we can see the enemy cruisers are firing AP at me and bouncing off. Not long left in this game though. I go for one last broadside at the Fuso. Aiming perhaps a touch high there. He is pulling away from my course, but not by that much. I score 1 hit out of that.